So picture this. You're out in the dark, totally isolated jungles of rural Texas. Now during the day, this spot is literally just an old, unassuming wooden structure. But at night, well, it transforms into something else entirely. Today we're diving into the anatomy of a truly terrifying story, the legend of the Goatman Bridge. We're going to deconstruct exactly why legends like this seem to permanently haunt rural Texas. You see, these remote, wild spaces, they provide this perfect isolated canvas for our absolute deepest fears to manifest. And through the story of four college friends, Ethan, Ryan, Olivia, and Jake, we're going to break down the actual mechanics of terror. We'll look at exactly how a simple local myth can escalate into a full-blown nightmare. Let's get into it.
Do not go on the bridge after midnight. It's a simple, chilling warning, right? This is the foundational rule of the whole legend, passed down by locals who, well, they just know better than to test the dark. But, of course, our four college friends decided they were completely above local superstitions. They arrogantly planned this weekend trip to visit the bridge right at midnight just to uncover the truth. And this sets up our ultimate stakes. You've got this ancient, chilling local warning going head-to-head with modern, youthful arrogance.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the setup, setting the scene, and the skeptics.
Now, rural legends absolutely thrive on the friction between deeply rooted local folklore and the modern skepticism of outsiders. And we see that clash playing out in real time right here. On one hand, you've got Jake. He arrogantly flicks on his camera, laughs, and declares, "Tonight, we'll prove this haunted bridge is nothing but a fake story." But then on the other hand, you have Olivia. Just being in the vicinity of this bridge triggers this intense, rising panic. She's whispering, "I do not like this place at all." The sheer isolation of rural Texas immediately starts fracturing the group's confidence. I mean, even before anything supernatural actually happens, just the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the jungle is already doing a serious number on their psychology.
Moving on to Section 2, the isolation, when modern technology fails.
So the true psychological terror of these rural legends, it almost always starts by cutting the victims off from the modern world and trapping them out in the elements. Just look at this timeline. It's wild how quickly their safety net vanishes. At 11:58 p.m., they roll up to the bridge. Just 1 minute later, at 11:59, the car radio dies, just abruptly cuts out. In that exact same minute, their phone signals completely drop to zero. And then, precisely at midnight, bam, a sudden freezing wind hits them. In just 2 minutes, their entire connection to the outside world is stripped away. It's honestly a masterclass in building tension, because by the time they actually step foot onto that bridge, they are completely vulnerable, totally isolated, and entirely at the mercy of the Texas wilderness.
Which brings us to Section 3, the unseen terror, mastering sensory escalation.
This legend is brilliant because it builds dread not through cheap, immediate jump scares, but through unseen environmental and auditory threats. The environment itself essentially becomes the enemy here. First off, you've got the super loud creaking of the old wood right beneath their feet. It's this constant reminder of how precarious their situation is. Below them, pitch black water. On both sides, a totally dense, impenetrable jungle. Jake is still talking to the camera, insisting nothing is happening. And then, the auditory trigger. From the completely opposite end of the bridge, they hear heavy, deliberate footsteps. Thud, thud, thud. Ryan sweeps his flashlight over there, but there is absolutely nothing, just trees and the deep dark. The suspense here is literally suffocating because the threat is entirely invisible.
So what do you do when you're faced with terrifying, unexplained phenomena in the pitch black? Well, if you're Ethan, you make a massive mistake. He foolishly shouts right into the dark void, "Goatman, if you are real, show yourself." And guys, this is a really pivotal moment in our explainer. When you look at the anatomy of a legend, there is almost always a catalyst, right? A direct invitation or a taunt that essentially commands the entity to manifest. Ethan's arrogant shout provides exactly that. The nervous laughter of the group? Yeah, that's about to be silenced for good.
Look at how crazy fast the terror escalates in these 3 steps. First, the environment responds to Ethan's taunt. This strange, incredibly unsettling growl echoes from directly beneath the bridge, completely draining the blood from Olivia's face. Second, Jake points his camera down into the dark, and for just a few chilling seconds, 2 glowing red eyes stare directly into the lens before vanishing the second the flashlight hits them. And then we get to the 3rd step, the most terrifying one of all. The threat moves from a distant sound to a fleeting visual, and finally into an intimate physical violation. An unseen hand gently touches Ryan's shoulder. He spins around, but the space behind him is completely empty. The psychological boundary has officially been breached.
And here we are at Section 4, the climax. The Goatman appears.
That creeping, unseen dread we were just talking about, it's about to transform into undeniable visual reality. So you really have to ask yourself, what happens when your last lifeline to reality just dies? Right after Ryan gets touched by that unseen hand, Jake's camera, the literal tool he brought to prove the whole legend was fake, completely shuts off. Jake is frantically mashing the power button, desperately trying to get the screen to glow again, but it's totally dead. That camera was their last psychological shield, their objective observer, and with it gone, the true nightmare is completely free to step right out of the shadows.
And this is exactly what emerges at the far edge of the bridge, a massive, tall, dark shadow. Notice how the pacing of the story really slows down here just to emphasize the sheer scale of this silhouette. It's not just a weird sound anymore. It's not a fleeting pair of eyes. The entity has actually taken up physical space in their world. It's blocking their path, and it is entirely commanding the darkness.
As the silhouette slowly comes into focus, its chilling physical features are finally revealed. Protruding right from the top of its head are two massive horns. This specific visual detail absolutely locks in the identity of the legend. It's definitely not an animal, and it is for sure not human. It is exactly what those local legends warned them about.
But you know what's even worse than what they can see? It's what they can't see. They can see the massive shadow, they can clearly see the horns, and they can definitely see those glowing eyes cutting through the dark. But the face itself remains completely hidden in the void. This faceless nature strips away any chance of reason or empathy or understanding. It is purely an entity of the dark, and it is slowly, deliberately, walking straight toward the paralyzed teenagers.
At this point, the threat is no longer just in their heads. It's not a trick of the wind, and it's not a glitch in the camera. With every single heavy step the entity takes toward them, the entire old wooden structure of the bridge violently trembles. The psychological terror has perfectly transitioned into overwhelming physical danger.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. We've seen firsthand how the vast isolation of rural Texas strips away all our modern defenses. We've seen how sensory deprivation breeds pure terror, and exactly how local warnings are ignored at a very, very steep price. So I leave you with this. Are the dark, isolated nights of rural Texas truly safe, just waiting for the sun to rise? Or are some of these chilling legends completely, terrifyingly real? Next time you find yourself driving down a dark country road near midnight, maybe you shouldn't stop to find out. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.